Attention parents and coaches. Do you wish you had a safe social media platform for your youth athletes? Fortunately for you, there's a revolutionary new app that helps with just that. Introducing Small Player, Big Play. Small Player, Big Play app provides young athletes, parents, and coaches a user-friendly sports social media platform. The app allows users to connect with friends, make new friends, create groups, text, chat, and post pictures and videos of you and your teammates participating in your favorite sport or activity. To begin, users can simply download and sign up for the app using an email account. Younger users have the ability to sign up using their smartphone and a parent's email address. From there, users can begin to interact and engage with other users of the app. Small Player Big Play app also gives users the ability to live stream full games and events. You can live stream your event so that friends, family, or anyone in the world can see you in action. Users can also share posts from the app to their other social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and share your love of sports with the world. Download the Small Player Big Play app today.
You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting with me here across the way is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to be here.
Sounds like we got your mic fixed.
Yeah, it's I don't have to.
Just don't move.
Won't touch it.
Okay.
Won't touch it.
Good. So, welcome back. Episode 10 of our 6th season here on the Bulldog Hour.
That's crazy.
And we once again get to discuss a Wilson Bulldog victory.
Always fun.
It is a lot of fun. It was a unique circumstance Friday evening.
Yeah.
As if 2020, was already unique in its own right. The continuation of the major thing that has made it so different from years past, the global pandemic surrounding the coronavirus. The teams were limited as to how many people could be in the stands, and by people, I'm not talking about spectators.
Right.
I'm talking about players.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Participants. I don't know how much it impacted the McCaskey team. I'm not sure they had that many players.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
know.
They had in the 40s, which is about what Wilson was using on the sideline. But on the team itself, Wilson has around 75 players. And when you add in coaches, trainers, everything important to a traveling, 6A football team, usually it's about 105 people, and Wilson was limited to 65. So to make that work, they left a bunch of backups, JV, underclassmen mostly, outside the fence.
Yeah. They had, basically the first squads and a couple guys to kind of fill in here and there. For the first of each, team. So like first team defense, first team offense, and it's not as cut and dry as that. So there were some other guys there that kind of rotate through, and everyone else was kind of outside. Not kind of, they were outside. So
yeah, I have pictures of them standing outside watching, kind of longingly looking towards the game, and
they can only see part of the field.
Right, and it was funny, and I heard the coaches talking about this, that in the third quarter, when Wilson had really put it away, running clock started, they started cycling in the players. They were rotating. Your starters would have to leave, and they'd be yelling for a player.
Right.
That they would basically exchange positions.
Yeah, it kind of like when you send a player into the game, as they're telling guys to go out, they're telling them who to send in. Like they're saying, like send so-and-so in, and the player runs out, and they send someone back in. Like it was unique.
And in the one case in the third quarter, they were subbing a guy in who ran right on the field, didn't even stop on the sideline, to wait. They were switching him out. He ran right on the field, and in that play, I believe he got a sack.
Right.
He just ran right on the field, got in position, had a sack. Had previously been outside the fence, and now he is making a play on defense.
Yeah, crazy.
So
but be ready
funny.
when you're called upon, right?
Yeah, that's what they were, next man up. Thankfully, this week it wasn't necessitated by in-game injuries,
right.
which we've seen in the past. The team was still down some players. Thankfully, Kayla was back last week and got to play on Friday night. Jaden was dressed, however, he did not play. His brother Cam played sparingly.
Yeah, only a couple snaps.
But Troy returned.
Yeah, Troy had a big night.
Pick me up at his safety spot and wide receiver, and we'll get to talk about him in a little bit. But the biggest one that's still out and still undetermined is Mason, the senior running back, returner, and cornerback. Hasn't played since really the second quarter of week 1.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can make his way back soon. The Bulldogs' next game is Friday the 16th, I think. Yeah, Friday the 16th.
Yes.
And it's against Cedar Crest. So that's who we'll be previewing in a little bit as we finish our discussion about the Bulldogs' 41-7 victory over McCaskey. But before we do that, let's dive into our announcements and housekeeping surrounding the show. Mostly, we would like to thank our sponsors, May's Sandwich Shop and Small Player Big Play app. You heard the advertisement for the app prior to the show, and we'll play it again for you at the end of the show. But definitely check them out on the Google and Apple app stores. They're a big supporter of our show, and they're a huge supporter of high school and youth athletics around not just the county, but this part of the state of Pennsylvania. And actually, they've grown outside of the state. They've done sports all the way out, I believe, in Indiana or Illinois.
Wow.
So they've been live streaming a lot of events, and it's something that you can be a part of. So definitely check out them on your smartphone or tablet app stores. And also want to make sure we do thank our 2 anonymous donors. We appreciate their support. Even if they don't want their name out there, we appreciate their donations nonetheless. And we really couldn't do it without these sponsors. So thank you very, very much. Besides the sponsorships and advertising, there's a few ways you can help us. In addition to the donations, visit the website, bulldoghour.com. I've been putting links up for the live stream. So if you ever forget or can't find on the social sites, or you don't use social media, you'll want to check bulldoghour.com for links to the weekly game live streams, because that is the only way you're going to be able to watch these games. I don't anticipate any place that Wilson's playing letting in spectators that aren't possibly parents of the players.
For the foreseeable future, that is Wilson.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
I as far as I know, despite the change in the capacity order, I do not believe Wilson is adjusting what they're going to be doing. So what was done for Mifflin and Penn Manor will be the status quo for this week against Cedar Crest and the following week against Hempfield. And I assume if Wilson would get to host a playoff game or any games in November after the playoffs, I do not expect there to be general admission.
Right. And I don't know, and I haven't heard this. I assume District 3 would kind of defer to the schools and the policies that they had in place for months, as opposed to PIAA District 3 kind of changing things. That's kind of been their stance all along, so I don't anticipate them really kind of putting something out there. But you know what I mean? Like, right. I don't...
No. I'm right there with you. I think they're going to defer to the
I don't
school.
know, but that's a problem for the future. So
yeah, we'll see what comes about that. But I do believe, I think you're right, that they're going to defer to the host school. So our next live show will be a week from now on October 18th, and we'll recap the Cedar Crest game and then preview the Hempfield game. The Hempfield game could set up to be a huge, huge game, not for just the Lancaster Legend League, but also in the district playoffs. Should both Wilson and Hempfield win this coming week, the Bulldogs hosting Cedar Crest and Hempfield tangling with Manheim Township, that would set up a de facto Lancaster Legend League Section 1 championship game. That is the last week of league play, a week from Friday, so a little less than 2 weeks from now, on October 23rd. if Wilson and Hempfield win this Friday coming up, both teams are undefeated in Section 1 play, only have the one non-league loss to start the season. The winner of that game would win Section 1 outright and be in position to probably be a top 4 team in the District 3 at the 6A level. So that will be a huge game. Wilson gets to host it. So,
Yeah, any hope either team would have of qualifying for districts requires a win that night. And honestly, wins this week. So, it could shape up to be a huge game in a couple weeks.
Absolutely, and it's just you got Wilson connection. We've said that George Yeager is the head coach there. He's got them off to a great start. Their only loss is to Exeter in the first game of the season, and that was in overtime on the road.
And Exeter's only loss, I believe, was to Mcmillan this week, and we saw how that can happen. So enough of that. But
it should be an exciting showdown. Should Hempfield beat Manheim Township this week, and should Wilson beat Cedar Crest?
That's a big if. Like you never know. Some surprising ways that other games went around the league this week. Not necessarily in who ended up winning, but just kind of how the games unfolded. Not just in the league, but kind of in other leagues around the district as well. But I think some of that is you have some just crazy things happening this year, and I think sometimes it's high school football. Right. Crazy stuff happens in high school sports all the time. So
Hempfield is hosting Manheim Township as well, because we had heard after we defeated the Blue Streaks that they were on the road for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, this is week number 3. Now we saw them dismantle Cedar Crest in Lebanon, 49-14. Then this is the Blue Streaks. They squeaked by Penn Manor this last week in Millersville. They were down 6-0 at halftime, and they had to hold on at the end as they had an interception either in or near the end zone to seal it for them. Probably we're looking ahead to that Hempfield game because they know it's a big one.
Right.
If they want any chance at making the playoffs, and theirs is a lot slimmer
they need a lot of help.
What we're dealing with, Township obviously has to beat Hempfield for that to happen. So they'll be on the road for a third straight week, playing Hempfield, who is looking to have one of the better years in recent memory, especially competing possibly for the league championship should they beat Manheim Township. So, Hempfield got a lot riding on these next 2 weeks, just like Wilson does. But we'll preview that game next week. We'll first have to talk about Cedar Crest, but before we even do that, let's finish the McCaskey discussion. So, we know Wilson won 41-7. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream that JP McCaskey produced. My dad said it was pretty well done. Yeah. It was tied in, I think, with the announcer.
It is. I only know that because he was referencing. So I was set up right outside of the press box, so I could hear a lot of the discussion that was going on in the press box. And he was saying, like, sometimes he would say things over the PA system, and he's like, that's not, well, really, there weren't fans there, but like he said, it's so, because they don't have a fixed camera on the scoreboard. So he would say things like, 1st and 10, 3 minutes left in the second quarter, and say the score, because people watching the live stream couldn't necessarily see what the scoreboard or time and situation were. So he would sometimes say those to kind of help cue in the viewer. So and they have a great announcer. So
Frenchie,
yes,
the former Reading Phillies announcer,
and the current Royals. Well, not this past but like Royals announcer. Yes,
and he's got a great voice. He does really well during the game.
And it was funny because someone said like, "Oh man, your voice is just perfect for this," and he's like, "Thanks, but I didn't have to do anything to get it." And he's like, "I was kind of born with it." Like,
came naturally,
right? But we know it's not quite as simple as just saying into the mic. You got to know what to say, and he does a fantastic job.
I believe it may have only been a single camera for the playing field, but
they did a good
job following the action, and they also had a camera on the scoreboard so you could see time down at distance, the score at all times. Okay. So it was very well done.
That is good, and because of the setup, like their stands are high, so while there may only be a single camera, like you can get a good vantage point. If you have a good camera up there, which apparently, obviously they probably do, like it's not like it's a low angle to the field. Like the way the stadium is set up, you can get a good angle there.
Yeah, and viewers at home had a better view than the Wilson JV team did. So,
yes.
You got that going for you.
At least they were virtually in the stadium. So,
all right. So, let's watch a little bit of the game before we talk about it and do stats and get to our player of the game. So let me see if I can pull up the Huddle game recap that they do. This will be from the Wilson vantage point, so we'll get to see a lot of the important stuff. Although we know after doing this for the last few years that they don't always include every play that we want to see. But things started with a bang. That's how the things got rolling. The Bulldogs started really strongly.
Good kickoff return to the 50-yard line.
Yep. And, from there, it just took one play.
Yeah.
And went to Gavin Leonard, the junior running back, filling in for the injured Jaden Jones and his brother Mason. And he took it 50 yards to the house.
Yeah, there were a couple times. Yeah, there were a couple times where he got, it kind of got all crowded and not all right at the line of scrimmage. A couple times downfield and then walking the tightrope at the end, but he got in.
Now, Wilson would drive a little bit on their second series, but eventually have to punt. However, the defense was so swarming that here you're going to see them set up and just destroy the McCaskey backs, force a fumble, recover the ball, and then I believe within 2 plays, take it into the end zone. Yep. That's how they went up 14-0. Here you're going to see Spencer Tenga's return touchdown, which was great. He's back there still returning for Troy Corson, the normal returner, but he was just returning after a 2-game absence. So they let Spencer back there, and, he showed why he was back there.
Exactly.
Returning, I believe, 61 or 62 yards for the score.
Yep.
So about 2 minutes to play in the first, Wilson's up 21-0.
Yeah, which it's a good thing, and we'll talk about that a little later, but it doesn't always happen even when it's kind of expected.
And right there, you just saw Troy Corson's first touchdown reception. He has another one coming, I believe, right here. The first one put him up 28-0, and then the second one we thought would get him to the mercy rule. Unfortunately, the extra point was missed. It went 34-0 at halftime. So the Wilson offense would have to come back in the third quarter and get another score, which they did on a really nicely thrown ball from quarterback Caleb Brown on a slant pattern to junior wide receiver Josh Drake. He gets into the end zone. The extra point is good. Wilson's up 41-0, and that was almost the final score. McCaskey offense really couldn't do anything against the Wilson defense. I think they had a grand total out here. It says on the screen here 108 yards. It was right around that number on the stat sheet as well. So they really didn't do a lot, and I would say at least 20 or 30, maybe more of those yards came in the second half when there was nothing on the line.
When we were running guys in from the other side of the fence.
And their only score came on a fumble recovery. It was not their offense.
Right.
So their offense was blanked by the Wilson defense. Fumble recovery taken back for a touchdown was the only way McCaskey scored. We've talked about it, and I believe we mentioned it on the show last week, that Wilson historically starts slow on the road at McCaskey.
Well, it's such a different feel every year, any year. It's just, you go, it's a big stadium, but, it's the only game you play on grass. Not that should have any effect, but you know what I mean? Like, it feels different. And then when you go, and it's the first game they've played really with an empty stadium. Like, I know we haven't been playing in full stadiums, but, they had their band there, but their band probably, maybe 40 or so members. But
I think it was 50 or 60.
Okay, but they're really spread out. And that was it. There was no one else there.
Yeah.
They had cheerleaders there, but there were only maybe 10 cheerleaders.
There weren't a lot of them either.
That was it. There was no one else there. So it did kind of have, I don't know, it kind of had like a scrimmage type feel in the sense of coaches could just, and I know they've talked about this and I've heard about it in the paper from other people too, how coaches can make adjustments in play, as opposed to when there's lots of noise, you can't always say hey, move up on the line or whatever. You can't, they won't always hear you. This year, they pretty much hear you. On Friday night, they could absolutely hear anything you were saying. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it was just a different feel. But they handled their business, and they did. You know, it wasn't like flawless by any stretch, but they went in and did what they had to do, and it was good to see. You know, we don't, like you said, we don't always get that at McCaskey.
Yeah, I mean, 21-0 in the first quarter. That's more than we could expect for or hope for. That's a
Right.
great start. And it wasn't just done with offense. I mean, obviously we got great return, a big offensive play, but then you had a punt block eventually.
Yeah, like all of them were contributing. You got the explosives play on offense. You had some nice throws and catches in the end zone. Both of Troy's touchdown catches were great. I know they were later on.
I thought the first one was close. It wasn't when thankfully I got a picture of it, and I was like, okay, he definitely had his, he only need 1 foot with control, and he had a good 3 feet before. He had at least a yard, if not 2, before stepping out. It was clearly a touchdown. Now, he was on the opposite side of me on the second one, and I don't think McCaskey agreed that he was in.
Right.
And from the video, I think it's close.
Right. I couldn't see. That was the second one was a perfect example of watching through the screen. It's hard to tell. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't tell in the moment. I knew it was close. I think it's hard because he's also like sliding, like diving kind of out, or falling out. Like, so it's not like he is like they're trying to like tap his toes necessarily. He's kind of like dragging. But yeah, I mean, he did a great job of making the catch and doing what you got to do.
Right.
To be fair, the refs that were in much better position to see, whether he got his seat down than we were from our vantage points. So, but yeah, like you got contributions on offense, you got contributions on defense, and you had some big plays in special teams. Like, hey, that's a good, solid all-around effort.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it was great. It was a great all-around effort. They did a phenomenal job.
I like that as they kept bringing guys in too, the next level of guys were making plays too. Maybe not, with the exact same, level as the top guys, but there was, when they would bring guys in, like you said, guys were coming in, they got a sack. They, they were running to the ball. They were doing all kinds of things. And the defense that, as they were switching through was still able to keep McCaskey off the board, which, like you said, their offense couldn't really get anything going, but we also know like that they could break one at any moment, so like to be able to make the plays. Hey,
and you saw that flash, especially their quarterback was very shifty, very quick.
Yeah.
When he got on the move, he was moving. If you didn't get a body on him, he made a bunch of people miss. He made some people look foolish.
And that's where we had to, when we got him in the backfield, if we made the tackle, we were good. Mm-hmm. Like, and we made the tackle more times than not.
More often than not, yep.
A couple times he was able to elude the tackler, and
you're in trouble.
Then you're like, like we better get him at the next level, because if he gets through that middle level, not that our guys can bring him down in the back end. It's just it's really hard at that point because you're in the open field at that point. So, but yeah, fortunately we were able to avoid any of that. So.
Statistically, obviously, Wilson's going to dominate this as well as they did on the scoreboard. First downs, Wilson had 11 to McCaskey 6, and I believe they only had maybe 2 in the first half.
Yeah, probably.
I know of 1. They might have had.
It took them a while to get the first one. I know that.
Wilson rushed for 229 yards, McCaskey 95. Wilson only threw for 55 yards, but they didn't have to most of the time, and they still connected 3 times through the air.
Well, and
4 scores.
I was going to say 55 yards, but 3 of those were for touchdowns. Yeah. So you'll take that.
Absolutely. 15 passes were attempted, only 5 were completed, 3 of them for touchdowns. McCaskey, though, 7 attempts, 1 completion. Total yards 284 to 106.
A lot of that though comes with short fields. Like when you're not giving up first downs, like you're not taking over at your own 20 or your own 15 or anything. So there aren't a lot of yards to necessarily be had.
Each team had a turnover, which was by fumble and led to touchdowns for both teams. Even in penalties, 6 for Wilson for 50 yards, 5 for 50 yards for McCaskey. McCaskey had the ball almost twice as long as Wilson did. They held on to the ball, just weren't doing too much with it. And, of course, a lot of that came in the second half with the running clock. Third down conversions, not great for either team. It's something that Wilson definitely needs to clean up if they want to make some noise here at the end of the season and as the second season begins. 2 of 8, but the defense did hold McCaskey to just 1 of 12, and Wilson was 2 of 2 on fourth down, while McCaskey was 0 for 2. And again, we mentioned this last week, red zone opportunities, Wilson 3 for 3, and McCaskey didn't sniff the red zone. No attempts inside Wilson's 20 for the Red Tornadoes. So all around, pretty solid. Like we already mentioned, all 3 phases were really clicking, which is ideal, especially for a road game at a place that you tend to start slow.
Right.
That other place that Wilson tends to start slow is Warwick. We'll get in Lidditz, and we don't have to go there this year.
I'm okay with that.
It's a positive.
That's okay.
Looking at individual stats, rushing-wise, both Gavin Leonard and Caleb Brown carried the ball 7 times. Gavin gaining 90 yards, Caleb 85. Both had rushing touchdowns as well. Troy also, in his return, carried the ball 4 times for 21 yards. Passing, it was mostly Caleb Brown. He was 5 of 13, 55 yards, 3 scores with a long of 23. And receiving, it was mostly Troy, 2 for 34 yards, both of them touchdowns. So in his return, he gets both touchdown receptions. Corey Powers had 2 catches for 8 yards, and Josh Drake had 1 for 13, but it was the third passing touchdown. Defensively, a lot of people playing, a lot of people mentioned here. And the one that actually led the way in tackles is a backup and someone that we'll be hearing about a lot over the next few years. He's just a freshman, Ryan McMillan, 5 tackles from his inside linebacker spot. Not a starter, but got plenty of time in the second half. He may have played almost the entire second half and definitely was making a name for himself. In terms of guys that were there during the first half, Eli Rodriguez and Corey Powers and Ethan Capitano, all with 4 total tackles. Both Rodriguez and Capitano, multiple tackles for losses, and Cappy had 3 sacks and a blocked punt as well.
That's a crazy stat line.
4 tackles, 3 of which were for loss because they were all 3 sacks, and he also blocked a punt, and I think he was close on another 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah, that's crazy. The player that just popped to mind when I'm hearing numbers like that is Austin Rosa. Like just how he kind of
the amount of sacks that he accumulated in 13 and 14.
And just some of those like big plays. He just that's just kind of what popped to mind there when you hear numbers like that.
Yeah. Now, Justin and I had a discussion about player of the game. It was really a team effort. Like we said, it was all around very strong.
Second week in a row where you kind of saw like lots of contributors all over the place, which is that's a good thing.
It's absolutely a good thing to have.
Tough to decide, but it's
made
a good
it really
thing.
tough because I feel like obviously running for a score and throwing 3 scores when you contribute 4 touchdowns. Yeah. Caleb has to be in the running.
Yes.
We talked about him. Gavin having another big rushing game, almost 100 yards, and a big rushing touchdown to kick off the scoring. He was in consideration. Clearly, Cappy also with that game, and he already had a Player of the Week honor. Or he split it back in game 2 at Township, and he definitely could have been the guy at McCaskey. He was a terror against McCaskey, and he was in the backfield every play. They could not block him.
No,
they did not know how to contain his speed and strength off the edge. But the guy we went with here is going to be senior wide receiver and defensive back Troy Corson making his return. He's a guy that was very important to the team over the last few years, and it's unfortunate that he missed the last 2 weeks. Obviously, we know he was itching to get back, especially last week when he was dressed, did not see the field. This week he comes back, and he made it count. The 2 passing reception touchdowns for him in the first half. Getting to spend time on defense where he really has made a name for himself. Not back in the return game yet, but his understudy did him well with the return himself. So lots of options for player of the game, but we're going to go with Troy in this one for his efforts. But again, great team win at Lancaster on Friday night.
Yeah, and I hope we have plenty more of these difficult discussions because there's so many to choose from. That's always a good problem to have.
No, definitely. I like when we're like, oh, so many guys had good games.
Right, yeah. So
Who do
many
we
guys
pick?
contributed. Who
Who
are
do
we
we
going to
pick?
pick?
So that's what we went with. Feel free to disagree with us, but our word is final.
Yes.
All right, so let's preview our next game, which is game number 5 against Cedar Crest at Gursky this coming Friday, October 16th, 7 o'clock kickoff time. It will be live streamed by Wilson Media Productions. So pull up your YouTube app on your smartphone, tablet, or
your TV.
television. Yeah,
I
that's
know
a
we were
big
getting
thing.
that question
Yes.
this week.
Most televisions, whether it's built-in, smart, or you're using a dongle or attachment from Google, Amazon, Apple, whoever, Roku, have the YouTube app. So if you have any of those devices, you can watch the game on your television.
Yeah,
which I know people were missing this last week.
You can log in and set it, and because the event, for all I know, it might be there already. If it's not, it will be later in the week, and you can just click, and if you subscribe to the Wilson Media Productions, it'll probably notify you.
So. Yeah, you can sign up for those notifications for them because they not only do the football games, they were doing volleyball this past week, and they also do the school board.
Right, they'll keep you in the loop for all major things, Wilson.
Yeah, so you should definitely subscribe to them.
Yeah, if you aren't subscribed already, it would be a great time to subscribe to them, especially at a time like this where that's your access for many people.
And Matt Citrone does a great job overseeing that, and then it's student led. You know, they're the ones on the cameras in the truck helping with setup. So it's definitely a great activity for those to do, and we hope that you all will join the stream this Friday night while Wilson hosts Cedar Crest. So let's talk about the Falcons a little bit here. This is Coach Rob Wildassen's 7th season to date. Entering this season, Cedar Crest was expected to probably be middle of the pack in Section 1, and that's where they're fighting to be. They started with a loss to Mannheim Central, 41-6, before rebounding, beating McCaskey 27-11. But back-to-back setbacks to Mannheim Township and Hempfield, both at home, 14-49 and 15-29, before traveling to Gursky this Friday.
And also that Mannheim Central team, have they lost three in a row now since that?
So Mannheim Central's only victory is over Cedar Crest, 41-6, back on September 18th, and then Mannheim Central went to Cocalico and lost 35-19. Went to Lidditz to play Warwick and lost 45-14.
So listen, those are two really good football teams, and I don't think anybody's surprised that those are really good football teams. This other one,
but
a bit of a surprise.
This past week, they hosted Solanco on senior night for the Barons and lost 42-35.
Yeah.
They haven't lost 3 back-to-back games since 1972.
I was going to say, I know you threw that stat out about 2 for Wilson, 2 in a row. 3 in a row for Mannheim Central.
It was back in the 70s, is what I read.
And listen, Solanco, I know that they don't get a lot of play here in Berks County because they don't play a lot of Berks County schools right now. In a couple years they will, but you can't sleep on them. They turned the corner a few years ago and kind of have been working their way back. They're always in a tough spot because you always have Cocalico. You have Cocalico and Mannheim Central in your section, and sometimes Lampeter Strasburg and those schools too. Section 2 can be.
Solanco's only loss is the Lampeter Strasburg, who's undefeated at the moment.
Right. So Section 2 in LL is no joke, and there are going to be some awesome games in there.
Oh, and next year
years.
they're adding Mcmillan.
Right.
And maybe Weiser? Or are they in Section 3?
No, but Exeter, right?
Oh, Exeter, right. Yeah, Exeter. So, yeah, we'll cover the Berks LL merger stuff, which has been approved and is happening again. It doesn't happen in 2021. It's not till 2022. Right. But obviously, we'll be talking about that in the future. Mannheim Central should win the next 2 weeks, Conestoga Valley and Elizabethtown, to end the season 3-3. Then who knows what's going to happen with Game 7. If we don't make the playoffs because of a loss or because the power ratings don't break in our favor, we will play Mannheim Central on October 30th in Mannheim.
Right.
So that's still a potential. That's out there. We talked at the beginning of the year. We thought the odds of that were highly unlikely.
Right.
We weren't sure what to think about Wilson. We thought we were thinking on the cusp of district playoffs.
Definitely a chance.
Because of 4 teams.
Right.
If it was 8 teams, we were like, we're good.
Right.
4 teams makes it tougher. Mannheim Central, we were like, they're in.
Right. Only because they're always in.
Right.
Like, they've always been in.
So this is a little bit of a down year for them. I thought they had rebounded nicely last year. They started really slowly. But when Wilson dominated them at Gursky,
they then dominated pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, went on a tear, and I believe made it to the district semis, and where they lost to Warwick.
Right.
Who then lost to Cocalico in the championship game the next week.
Right.
So a little bit of an uncharted territory for Mannheim Central, and we could see them the night before Halloween, depending on what happens over the next 2 weeks.
Right. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Right. I don't want to play Mannheim Central this year, because if we do, it means that we didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
Speaking of which, in no way have Justin or I ever thought of broaching the subject of, hey, is Wilson going to play games if we don't make the playoffs or if we lose in the playoffs?
No.
That is on the table in terms of the PIAA and District 3. But
I think they said they're going to allow games through Thanksgiving.
Through Thanksgiving weekend, yeah. So,
which, separately, that could provide a cool opportunity for some schools and for some of those big traditional rivalry games that
a lot
couldn't
of them
take place this year.
November 6th, November 13th.
Right, like that could be it. I know, and this is another tangent here, but District 11 has opted out of PIAA state playoffs, correct? They are doing their own
thing. Just doing district.
Right.
Like when their district playoffs are over, they're done.
Right. And they're doing their district playoffs more, like almost everybody makes it or something.
Yeah, they actually expanded the playoffs where like a whole bunch of,
I think it's like 38 out of 45 teams.
Something like that, yeah.
It's not like, I don't think it's one bracket. I think
no.
Right,
it's still split.
That would be
crazy.
Like the Indiana State basketball tournament is still like that, I believe. There's no classifications. They're just straight up
plays.
Everybody plays.
Oh boy. I feel like in football that would lead to injuries because of the type of teams.
I feel like you could split it and have like 6 and 5 maybe, and then 4 and below. Like even that, you're getting pretty crazy.
I think you're maybe 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6.
Right, and that's just. But like I just didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't know what they had done.
But yeah, District 11 is out. We'll talk about playoffs in a couple. Well, especially 2 weeks following the Hempfield game. If Wilson beats Cedar Crest and Hempfield, we'll be waiting until that Monday the 26th to find out the final power ratings. But I already have my own calculation sheet, which I'm going to be working on hopefully tomorrow night.
I was gonna say some updates there with some unknowns and some variables.
Well, let's finish since we're a little early. Let's finish our Cedar Crest preview. We got off on a tangent there. We'll finish talking about Cedar Crest and then we'll talk about the district playoffs. So Cedar Crest 6A, Rob Wildassin, 7th season here, 35 and 32, I believe, is his career record. No, excuse me, 35 and 31 in his 7th season as the Falcons head coach. Last year they were 7-4 and 3-3 in Section 1. They run a spread zone on offense, 4-3 defense, and they have a couple key guys back. They lost their main rusher, Tyler Cruz. He was a big guy in their backfield last year. But Aiden Richards is a stud. He was a 2-way starter or contributor last year at running back and inside linebacker. He's playing those positions again this year. He's only a junior. He is one of the better guys there. Their quarterback is back. Chris Dans returns, and he was a big-time passer last season. The bigger problem for them is their linemen are kind of like at Wilson, are all gone, graduated, moved on. I think they have just one returning starter along the offensive line in Cole Pennington. So they've been trying to replace those guys. They were decent last year. 500 in Section 1, 7-4 overall.
Made the playoffs, right?
Made the playoffs, yeah. They lost in the first round, but they were there. And they're struggling a bit this year. Just beating McCaskey, the strong quality teams that they've come up with haven't been able to do too much. But they gave Hempfield a game last week, 29-15. Especially with the way Hempfield had rebounded after the loss to Exeter.
Right.
Hempfield had been taking it to Penn Manor and McCaskey. Couldn't get it completely going against Cedar Crest. Again,
they have
at Cedar Crest. So.
And they have that big game looming next week against Township. And
maybe both teams were looking ahead to that showdown. Because that's a rivalry, too. They don't like each other.
Right.
So they were definitely both looking ahead to that. But... this should, we said, kind of alluded to it last week, and we'll say it outright this week, Wilson should win this game.
Yes.
Like, there's no excuses. There's no reason that Wilson shouldn't beat Cedar Crest, especially because it's at home. So you don't have to worry about a bus ride or distractions in that manner.
Or players having to stand outside the stadium.
Right. And for all intents and purposes, or at least from the appearance what we got after the game, people are getting healthy or are healthy, ready to play. Because Jaden was dressed this week and his brother Cam played sparingly, both probably play this week. A lot more than they did last week, at least until things...
Yeah, you would hope that they would progress that way. Like, typically if we see guys dressed one week, you hope that they can work their way back in the next week unless there's a setback or something. So, like, that would be the idea. I hope it works out that way. Well, that would be big additions to get those guys.
That would also be my hope for Mason.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't play much this Friday, but
or only on like one side of the ball.
Right? Like kind of like Troy played both sides, but he didn't play in the return game. But maybe Mason dresses this week, and maybe he only plays cornerback or he only plays running back.
Right.
It would be nice to see him get back into game action since near the end of the second quarter against Mcmillan.
Right.
It would be really nice to have him back. But with Caleb back, Troy back, likely having Jaden and Cam full go, people are getting healthy, and I know Hassler was back this week as well.
Yep.
Hopefully Jack Dendel is good to go, so that they have the full offensive line and key pieces there. But much better than 3 weeks ago after the Mcmillan game, and we were just like, man, who's playing at Township? Because we're missing a lot of guys.
Right.
So, anything else to say about McCaskey or Cedar Crest before we finish out with some district talk?
Just like last week where they went out and handled their business from the start. That's what they need to do this week. Not going to be the same as last week, but like you said, if they go out and they do what they're supposed to do, I'm confident in that we'll get the desired outcome. So.
All right, so I'm going to pull up here the current District 3 power ratings for 6A. And again, it's tough because there's only 2 games left before the playoff seeding starts. So this is not final. Don't panic because Wilson's not in the top 4. There's 2 games left, and a lot will happen with those 2 games to go. So let me see if I can get this on my screen here so that everyone can see it with me. All right, where is 6A? Okay, here we go. All right, so you should be able to see it now on your screen if you're watching the show along with us, where just 1 game played, Harrisburg does sit at the top based on the formula. Central Dauphin 2, 3-0. Central York and William Penn both 4-0. Wilson there at the 5th spot, 3-1. A little bit of a ways back from spots 2, 3, and 4. Again, I've run these numbers throughout the season, not including Harrisburg, because when I started this, they were not playing. And Wilson, should they win out, likely to make the top 4. In order to move up and host a game, they would probably need some chaos in the York League because both Central York and York William Penn do not play each other in the regular season because when they were supposed to play is the first week of the district playoffs. So that game essentially becomes a playoff game. Yeah. That's unfortunate in terms of schedule. It would have worked in our favor had they met earlier in the season. I don't anticipate William Penn losing the rest of the year.
If they were going to lose, it was
probably going to be Friday night where they were down to Red Lion but came back and won. Central York has been a juggernaut, and I don't see them losing based on the schedule.
Yeah.
So I just I feel, and I said this 2 weeks ago, that I think both Central York and William Penn will be undefeated entering the playoffs. When power ratings end, I think they'll both be 6-0. I also fully anticipate Central Dauphin to be undefeated at 5-0. They started a week after us, the Mid-Penn. So 5-0 and 2 6-0s. Should Wilson win out and sit at 5-1, obviously that means they would have beat Hempfield, who would be below us. And if Hempfield's hanging around it, that means they beat Township, so they'd be below us. I don't see Dallastown or Carlisle catching us. And that's pretty much it. So really, there's 6 teams in the running for these spots, but Wilson and Hempfield have to play each other, so one of those will be knocked down, and that leaves Harrisburg. And like I said, a few weeks ago when I started my calculations, Harrisburg wasn't playing. Then they announced they were playing, but I said, I was like, well, they can't play 4 games before the cutoff. Apparently there are no rules in terms of how many games you can play in a certain number of days, and they are trying to schedule 4 games within a 3-week period. So they already played this Friday at Berks Catholic and destroyed the Saints, putting up over 60 points. Now, Berks Catholic is a 4A team, so they don't get as many power points as they would beating a 6A team. And they currently do not have any teams scheduled this week or next week on any day of the week. They would like to play this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the following Tuesday, and then that Thursday, Friday, or Saturday as well, to get 3 games in before Monday, October 26th, which is the power ratings deadline. You have to play 4 games by Monday, October 26th. They currently have 1 and have no more scheduled in this time frame. However, if they schedule them and win and get enough power points, they will be eligible for the postseason, which is worrisome if you're a Wilson fan. I mean, just is. I don't know how else to say it. If Wilson goes 5-1 and Harrisburg finds enough games and goes 4-0, it's likely that Wilson is the odd man out.
Yeah.
So I'll know a little bit better once I do the calculations. I can't really do much with Harrisburg because I don't know who they're playing. I can't put in PowerPoints. The power rating they have right now is what they'll have until they find or play another game. But if they don't get to 4 games, their rating will become moot and they'll be dropped. So you just have to pay attention to what's going on with Harrisburg. Are they going to find 3 games in the next 2 weeks? Do they win all those games? And I mean, if they look as good as they did against Berks Catholic, I would say that's probably highly likely. Then things become a bit of an issue. But you can only play the teams that are on your schedule and what's in front of you. And Wilson's got to take care of business against Cedar Crest this week, following by Hempfield the next week, to win the section title outright. The winner of that game could win the section title outright, especially if Hempfield beats Township this week. Then both Wilson and Hempfield can fly a flag all by themselves, not have to worry about sharing it. No co-champion. So that's where we're at in terms of district playoffs. Right now, Wilson's on the outside looking in. There's a good chance that they take care of the business they'll be in, depending on what happens with the Harrisburg team.
Right, which again, we have no control over that. So we have to do what we can do. We have to win our games and just hope for the best. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, there's no real other way to slice it. I don't really know what else to say. It's kind of a wait-and-see approach. Right. I know the Harrisburg head coach, Everett, is also the athletic director, so he's been scrambling to get not only the football team, but a variety of the other fall sports teams.
Well, and we know it's not easy for teams to schedule games. Now, it's a little different for Harrisburg because they're a 6A school, possibly. It could be favorable for some schools, but we saw here in Berks County firsthand, it's tough for some schools to fill in their schedules with others, when you're good, right? Because there are a lot of teams that want no business with that. And that's unfortunate. Like, I feel bad. Like, it's a weird position because obviously I want Wilson to make the playoffs. I feel bad for the Harrisburg kids because they
Right. Well, I mean,
it's everywhere. They have nothing to do with what's going on.
Kind of what we talked about at McCaskey. Like,
right.
The football team had nothing to do with what was going on Friday
and how
night.
many people were like, it's not like there were a ton, but a number of people,
McCaskey people who
approached Wilson
disagreed
and
what was happening.
like they were like apologetic, and we're like, look, like
we know it wasn't your fault.
Right. We're like it is what it is, like we'll deal with it. We know like that you know here working, this wasn't your doing. You're just doing your job. Like that's fine. Like
because the things that we would have to mention
now to be fair, they might not get that response from everybody. There might be people who take it out on those people, and that's
certainly
just
not
as ridiculous.
What we wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's certainly not what we wanted to do. But we're towing the line of things that I would never talk about on this podcast in terms of government bureaucracy and politics, because that's what's controlling what's going on with the Lancaster School District and what McCaskey Athletics has to deal with in their extracurriculars. So it is what it is. The amount of people that came up and were like, "This isn't right. This isn't fair," and we're just like, everyone's going through stuff like this. No one's holding it against you.
We're having a football game. We're having a football game, and we're going to make the best of it.
Don't get me wrong. Like Coach Dom said, it's ridiculous, but it has nothing to do with the McCaskey coach, the McCaskey players, the McCaskey athletic department, the extracurricular. Like they're taking their rules, their guidelines from a higher power.
Right. They're following their bosses, or
what they're told to do.
Right. Exactly. So
it is what it is.
Right.
It's over with. It's done.
Right.
We're moving on.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because by this weekend, like, if Harrisburg doesn't have a game, then they're still looking for 3 in a week's time.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Their biggest
issue, it's hard enough to schedule teams for Friday nights.
Right. Their biggest issue is finding a Tuesday game in between the Friday games, of which they don't have yet either.
Right.
This would be a lot more, from a Wilson standpoint of making the playoffs without a road bump. It'd be a lot more worrisome if they already had the 2 Friday schedule.
And they just need to pick up a Tuesday.
Needed a Tuesday. Right. Maybe they could convince someone to show up and play.
Right.
But they have to find 3, and it's going to be tough to do that. Really, they're going to be waiting to hear what games are getting canceled because of COVID.
Right.
Like, they're going to be on... But then the other thing that's going against them is that they are a big bad team. Like, they are incredibly talented.
Right. So if you have teams that are like looking to make the playoffs, they're not going to want to play Harrisburg because they're probably not going to win.
They're mostly not going to win. Exactly.
Right.
So it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. And like you said, like, it's unfortunate for their student athletes that the district put them in that situation.
Right.
I know Coach Everett is doing the best job that he can. I hope they can get more games. They have games lined up in November against Manheim Township and Cumberland Valley, where they normally would play. So there are games that the kids will get to keep playing, but the district stole an opportunity for them to outright make the playoffs without there being all these scheduling issues.
Right.
So it's disappointing when student athletes, students in general, it doesn't have to be athletic purposes, get screwed over by people that are supposed to be looking out for them.
Right.
And that doesn't happen everywhere.
Right.
So, yeah. I did get, before we finish with our small player, big play ad, I did get a text from one of our anonymous donors saying that he believes if Harrisburg doesn't get the right amount of games, he thinks, based on his calculations, that Wilson could jump to the 3.
Whoa. That would be...
Now, I will point out that he's also the person that told me first last year that Wilson was going to jump Township for the 1 seed. So this isn't coming from someone that doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right. And remember, that was big news.
He clued us into that. That's when I was like, I got to do my own file. Right, I got to figure it out. And then on his lead, basically, I took it a step further and published it. And I got a lot of responses about it. One, people calling me crazy.
Right.
Spoiler, I wasn't crazy.
Spoiler, I was right.
I was right. And then I had people from 4 and 5A being like, can you do that for us?
Right.
I was like, do you know how many hours that took me to do because, and we talked about this last year, I have to take, from a Wilson perspective, I have to take Wilson, all of their opponents, and then the opponents of their opponents to get everything. So you start with one school, and last year was 10 games. That's 10 opponents who I then need 10 more of their opponents.
Right.
But that's for each team.
Right.
So, like, it adds up quickly. I had a file, I think, that had, like, 72 different team schedules, and that was just to calculate District 3 6A. Now, it was pretty close. I had a lot of 5A done because
but
the
you got the
overlap.
break. You got the break because York Tech didn't play anybody.
I had to include them though this year because they're they had won a game. Because last year they hadn't won a game.
They
so
hadn't won a game,
matter.
and they didn't play anyone, right? Like they didn't play.
There was
anyone.
no crossover. No, I had to calculate this year Delone Catholic and York Catholic and Biglerville.
Oh yeah, because York is all playing within York, I think. Yeah.
So there was some crossover there, but I didn't end up doing any of Burke's except Wilson and Mcmillan. But then Mcmillan, I didn't have to go out even farther because there wasn't as much overlap. It's a whole thing. But I redid it for this year, and I'm gonna edit it tomorrow night or Tuesday night just to get caught up with this past week's games and with schedule changes and things like that.
Well, let's just say I hope he's. I would love to find out if he's right. I'd love for that to be right.
And it depends on if things are screwy with, like, if District 3 makes a change that they're not telling anyone. Like, I was off on a few of mine because they weren't counting one of the opponent's losses to Baldwin out in the Whippeal earlier this year. It was Hollidaysburg lost to Baldwin, but that number wasn't included in the power ratings. And then me and the contact were talking about, are they only counting, like, against District 3 teams? And I was like, no, because State College counts for a lot of the mid-pen teams. Right. So we couldn't quite figure it out. So maybe he's cracked the code. I'll have to take a look at it. But know that it's something that I'm looking at, keeping an eye on. It worked out really well last year, both in our favor, Wilson being the one, and also me getting the calculations right based on the info from our contacts.
What week was it where you were able to publish that?
I believe it was week... Was it right after the Warwick game?
I feel
it
like
was almost exactly a year ago, because we beat Warwick a year ago now, like tonight.
That goal line stand, man.
Coach Dom's won his 152nd game as head coach on a
that
goal line
nuts.
stand with a whole bunch of alumni in attendance to watch.
With the big game the next night.
With the flag football game the next night. So, yeah, couldn't write that any better if I tried.
Right. And thankfully that was last year.
Oh, gosh. I don't even want to think about. Oh, boy. But yeah, so it was either right after the Warwick game or maybe 1 week later.
Okay.
I can't remember. So it was about a year ago where I did the file, went through it, and I was like, wow, he was right on the money. Because you have to predict all the games then, not just for you, for everyone in the file. You need to predict the rest of their games. So you're guessing who's going to win the games. And, once you get down to 1 week, because this is, I think, when it really caught wind, wasn't the week we jumped them. It was that we were going to stay there. I think that was the big thing. It was after week 9.
Because everybody was yelling, Wilson still has McCaskey on their schedule, and it didn't matter because it counts
it's already
in.
Included.
Right.
It's already included. So, yeah, people were really, really upset or happy or confused.
Mad at you over you calculating
nothing to do with
it.
Township beat them head to head. How can that be? Well, it really has nothing to do with that until you get the tiebreakers. It's all strength of schedule. And Wilson was propped up because the people they're playing in non-league were incredible.
Right.
Central Dauphin, Governor Mcmillan.
And Springford.
All of which went, I think, like 9-1 or 8-2.
I think all
and won their league.
Right. All of them won their league.
So, that's why strength of schedule is included. Sometimes that helps you. Sometimes it hurts you. But, yeah, that was fun last year, too. Especially when coaches were direct messaging me, like, can you do that for 4A or 5A? I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. So sorry. As much as I'd like to help, especially like the Berks team.
You just reply, I could. That's it.
I could, but
yes.
Sorry, I'm not.
Could you do that for 4A schools?
I'm not.
Yes.
And especially 5A has so many schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. No way. Sorry. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode. Quick play, our second advertisement from Small Player, Big Play.
Introducing Small Player Big Play app, the all-sports social media app for young athletes. Live stream events for your friends and family who can't be there. At home or at work, they can watch your streaming on their phones or on TV by using a mirroring device or AirPlay 2. Download the app from the App Store or Google Play and create an account using a valid email address. That's it. Now you can find friends, join groups, or make new ones. You can upload and watch your own content for free. Watch YouTube uploads for free. Even more streaming options are available with our subscription plans and in-app purchases. Download the app and start sharing with the world your passion for sports today.
All right, and again, we thank our sponsors, Small Player Big Play, May's Sandwich Shop, and our anonymous donors. All right, Justin, you got anything else to add before we wrap up episode 10 of our 6th season?
No, it's just, we spent some time talking about, things out of our control, but hopefully the players can stay focused and move on to Cedar Crest and handle their business this week, and just go out and try and win this week's game. That's all we really need to worry about right now, and the other stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah, much like we talked about last week, a week ago, take care of business at McCaskey. It's time to return home, take care of business against Cedar Crest, and you're in the driver's seat for what comes down the pike, especially should Hempfield beat Manheim Township this week and set up your league championship game. And you get another banner, you get the plaque, because you're outright league champs. You've got a lot to be happy about, especially people were counting you out after week 1.
Yeah.
And then here you are rebounding, possibly set yourself up to be champions and then maybe make the playoffs and play in that second season.
It'll be fun.
So, yep, a lot to look forward to. And again, we'll be back in a week's time to recap that game and get you ready for the next one. So until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.